So I wanted to thank you for joining me today to discuss about wellness. And when I started the series 3 months ago, it was to discuss career strategy. And but this place has grown to include so much more than that. We've tackled really important areas such as, finding your why and listening to meaningful conversation and very necessary conversation about inclusion. We've created collectives and, small but vibrant community. And I think it's just the beginning. But what I realized is that, when the urgency of the crisis of the COVID took me, I shared what I was most knowledgeable about, which is recruiting and talent advisory. But there's one area where we cannot hide anymore, and that the COVID was the biggest, has put the biggest focus on, which is our health. And I think we can work well, we can interview well, and we can get the job only when we are, at our best. I'm not saying maximum capacity, because I don't want to use, this, I don't want to optimize and you think that you have to be, at a max all the time, but that we are in a good place. So I think wellness is becoming one of the most important assets. And I remember a conference for business of fashion that was maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And one woman was saying, oh, it's going to be the big start of wellness. And she was saying, you have to understand that now in fashion, we all look good. We all have the nice clothes. We really arrive to a place where everybody can look good. We have access to makeup. We have access to nice clothes. Now we want to feel good inside those clothes. And so it was really interesting that she was sharing this. And the conversation tonight is really, First, I want to thank the participants. We have Monique Blake, who I will let introduce because she has so many certification in Ayurveda. She's a specialist of wellness since she was born on this planet, she shared with us. But she has a certification in Ayurveda, massage, astrology, natural living, and so on. And she's been training teams for many years. Alix de Torca, who is in the arts and culture and going from one job to another soon. And Sophie Maurice, that some of you know, who is retail, head of retail for Breitling. And Monique, Alix, Sophie, and I have all experienced a burnout. And I think what we realize, it's much more common than we think. And what I want this place is first, this sentence that I shared earlier is that there is such immense power in being witness. So a little bit like we had that conversation 2 weeks ago, witnessing our conversation, being there for each other, but also sharing how it felt, because as one of us was sharing, is you might be doing another one without knowing it, even if you know that you had one. So, and seeing it in your teams, seeing it in your partners, and seeing it in yourself. So without further ado, I think we should start with Monique sharing a little bit about how, or whomever, or Alix or Sophie, how that little burnout happened. And one of you wants to start?
Sure, I'll start. I just love being in this group every week. It's a great, wonderful place and wonderful sharing. As we were talking a little bit before, burnout is common, and so many of us have experienced it. For me, it was, I had a very big sign. It manifested as a physical illness for me, specifically with my thyroid being out of balance. For me, the challenge is that I am in the wellness business. So even being in the wellness business and being surrounded by wellness, it still is something that can have something for me to work on. And I'm continually, as we said before, continually working on being healthy and living a balanced life. So for me, that experience is what brought me to Ayurveda, and ultimately the source of not only healing that experience, but also giving me tools, very practical and simple tools to maintain a better work-life balance.
Mm-hmm. Alix, Sophie, do you want to share?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So I had a burnout about 7 years ago. And I'll just preface it by saying that for a very long time, my self-worth was linked to my work. And I think that that's what created, this extreme situation. And I'd just been promoted into a role where I felt completely out of my depth. I was doing finance and I work in the arts. The signs that happened of the burnout is that I started realizing I was doing things that weren't quite normal. So I was arriving at 5:30 in the morning and I was leaving at midnight, and I was not CEO of that company. I started having physical symptoms, so kind of heart palpitations at night. And suddenly my world became very small. I was completely obsessed about the tasks I was doing. And I think the day I realized that I was having a burnout, I had not been able to sleep all night, just completely obsessed about a figure I thought I had wrong in my spreadsheet. And I felt so bad. I called my dad at 5 in the morning, and he picked up the phone. He was like, "What, are you okay? Are you in hospital?" And I was like, "Dad, this figure in the spreadsheet is wrong." And he was like, "Oh my God, what is happening to you?" And so for me, just kind of realizing that it wasn't quite normal just kind of tipped me off. And I was having dark thoughts, I don't like to share about it, but I wanted to get in an accident, to be in the hospital, to not have to deal with these thoughts and the work and the pressure. So that's kind of how I realized that something was definitely not right.
Thank you. Yeah, it can be very intense. Absolutely.
Hi, everybody. So for me, it was slightly different in the sense that I was sure I knew what a burnout was, like everybody. So it's something that I would have never gotten because I was far too strong for that. And burnout was depression, and I was not depressive at all. I was such an happy chick. And burnout would happen when you were harassed at work and when you didn't like your work. And I felt I didn't belong in any of those categories. I was on a natural high of adrenaline at work that I was enjoying like crazy. I had just kind of had a good conversation with my parents visiting 3 weeks before, and they were asking me about work, and I was like, you cannot imagine that. I have so much fun. I love it. It's nice, and I'm on a high, and I'm always hyper, and I really love it. And 3 weeks after that, I was on a Monday morning in front of my computer at 9 o'clock. I arrived at 9:20. I had done nothing. And at 9:20, I realized that my brain was a big cloud and I couldn't process any more information. I was just drowned in the adrenaline that just disappeared. There was no more adrenaline. And it was just like a mushy brain, and that's all. And I was like, I guess that's what burnout is like. So it was a mini one. I don't think that I think I caught it early enough that, I could put my 2 feet on the brake. But the big surprise for me was that I had no clue how it could, come to me, and how surprising it was that I could be happy having a burnout almost. That was kind of the big surprise for me.
Yeah. So thank you. And I had a bit of experience of yes, a mix. I remember clearly one day being in front of my computer and just incapable, like my brain was not functioning. I could not do anything. And I was doing 2 things at once, or not 2 things at once, but I was doing 2 jobs. And I was a little bit like Sophie on the, like loving it, and I can do this more, and I can do this more, and I can do this more. And then I think ignoring conversation. I think my dad sent me 2 books of The Art of Doing Nothing and another, which, obviously he was trying to steer me in some directions. But as I shared with Monique, I also love my work, and I also felt that was a space that was a place where I could be in control, or I thought I would be in control, because that was my space where I was not distracted by kids or emotions and everything. It was really, more being efficient. And it was a space where I felt more efficient, but it arrived to a point where, like, from one day to the next, my brain fried and nothing was connecting. Then there was the tears, and I went into a bit of depression too, a bit. I think if you ask my husband, he'd say a lot, but I thought it was a bit. And that's where, for me, it was also the trigger to connect with wellness. I wasn't, like Monique, raised and working in wellness, so I had to discover it. So Monique, what, or any of you, what was one thing that you did that you reconnected you with your health? Or how did you do that?
Well, for me, there were a couple of things that were really important to focus on. And, the first thing was sleep. And, sleep is definitely the link and really the support for our immunity. Not only our immunity, but also just having energy to do things. So sleep was always challenging for me. I always tell people I was an insomniac for the first 30-something years. And one of the things that helped me outside of just having a routine around sleep was also the simplest tip that I always give everyone is forget about setting your alarm for getting up. Set an alarm for going to bed. When you set an alarm for going to bed, it keeps you honest. It keeps you focused on sleep and preparing to sleep. And so if you need to a lot of us have this capacity that when we start working, we're working all the time, literally. And so there's a point where we kind of stop looking at the time and we go on into this second wind. And before you know it, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, and we're still working and we're still very much energized. So I set my alarm for 9 o'clock every night. It goes off, and when it goes off, I know that I'm going to take that time from 9 o'clock on to prepare for bed. So I turn off the computer, turn off the cell phone, turn off the TV, and start to either do little things. I could do a foot massage. On the weekends, I could take a bath if I have more time. But I'm preparing myself not only physically, but also mentally to slow down and to get sleep, restorative sleep, not just a nap or not just sleeping and waking up the next morning and still feeling tired, but preparing myself to get restorative rest. And it will get me prepared and energized for the next day. So that's one of the simplest tips that I have.
Monique, I love that because it's like a date with sleep, a date with your bed. I mean, like a date with your pillow. It's a good one. And actually, I want you can you expand a little bit, because that's a conversation we had on Monday when we spoke the two of it together about having little rituals, because working from home during this COVID time, a lot of us are full, so we wake up, have a coffee, and we're immediately at work. And I can work, and then, I'll cook for dinner, but my computer's still open. So you have little rituals to contain that day, which is hard when you're, at work. When you're at the office, you can close the office door, you walk, you bike, you take the subway. So you have a separation, a physical separation. But when you don't have that.
Yes. So, for me, I think the pandemic is a moment for us to espouse radical self-care, right? So what I was saying to Agathe before was that we were not really well-versed in self-care prior to the pandemic. A lot of us were struggling with how to create balance in our life. If you look at our society, we are stressed, we are workaholics, we don't have that balance. So now we have a moment where it's really, really important to think about how to infuse well-being in every activity that we can. because this is a time of unprecedented anxiety and stress. And so we have to be very mindful to bring wellness and well-being in every activity that we do. And so many of us are working from home now. And so this is this kind of, it's very easy to flow into this all-day work session. So one of the suggestions that's, you know, just like how we step away from work when we go to the office, we have to also do that when we're at home. So the first thing I would say is to find a space. If you have a room that you can set up as an office, great. So at 5 o'clock, well, at 9 o'clock, you enter the room, you work like your regular work day. At 5 o'clock, you get up, turn off the computer, and you close the door. And that's it. Work is just in that space. That space should not be your bedroom. Your bedroom is meant for rest, not work. So if it's somewhere else that you can put that work, that would be ideal. And then secondly, if you don't have a room, set up a space, any space. Maybe it's your counter. And when 5 o'clock comes, you turn off that laptop, you turn off that computer, and you put everything away so that you're not visually cued in to work anymore. But just doing those little things, you take your lunch break, you at 12 o'clock, you give yourself a full hour, you come back, you keep working, and at 5 o'clock, that's the end of your workday. Not extending it beyond, but cutting it off like you would do when you walk out the office and close the door.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I got it all wrong, but I will start from now. So, Alix, you've moved. I know you've moved upstate. So, did you think that it was different being in the countryside, or being out of New York, or being out of your normal environment?
I mean, it's been great to be in nature, I must say. I think, to the couple of tips for me that helped me get out of the burnout is I decided to do the opposite of what I'd been doing so far, because what I was doing was not working. And so the first stage is that I quit my job because I was in an environment that was just, not working for me. And I had to face the fear of, being without a job and still being worthy. So I kind of forced myself to take a couple of months off to realize that I was a friend, I was a daughter, I was a tango dancer. So I literally just did everything but work. And that was the first kind of phase of kind of reclaiming myself. And then I got into another job, and I put boundaries, and they were a little bit extreme, I think, but it was a way of proving to myself that I wanted to do things differently. So the first week that I started my job, my boss says, "Oh, this weekend I'm going to give you a call," which was really for not anything important. And I was like, "I'm sorry, I don't take calls on the weekend." And she looked at me really surprised. She was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "I'm sorry, I just don't take calls. You can text me if you want to, but I'm not taking calls." And of course she texted me, to prove a point, but she never called me or never texted me after that. And one thing that really helped was, as soon as I left the office, I turned off my work emails systematically, and I would turn them back on the next morning when I was at the office. Because starting the morning with my phone and then in the bus with my phone just did not give me a good headspace. And being with my phone at night and responding, to my emails was terrible in my precedent job. So I did that, and it completely changed my life. Literally, it was a little thing, but I stuck to it for a couple of years, and then less. But that really helped. And then taking 20 to 30 minutes for proper lunch break, not in front of my computer. And because I didn't do that, I was able to connect with my colleagues and to establish kind of really nice relationships. So yeah, so I just did the opposite of what I had done, because what I had done had really not worked. And it really helped me,
That's great. I have to confess, Alix, that that's when I started exploring dance also, because I realized that there was not enough fun in my life. And that is when I realized that I wanted to do sports and something, but not something at the gym. I wanted to have fun. So I did also tango and belly dancing. And, you know, that's how I ended up doing voguing, because I had tried everything. I tried hip hop. Let me tell you that first I was twice the age of everybody, and already with no rhythm, it was really, you know, they were looking at me as like, poor thing. But the fun part of dancing was immense, super helpful. And you, Sophie, what did you do?
For me, I did actually the phone as well, which was great. I always used to laugh at people living with two phones. I still laugh at them, but I have two phones, but one that I never take when I'm not working, which is my work phone. So I'm not checking my emails after, you know, 7 at night, and not before 9 in the morning. And that changed drastically everything. I used to start my day with my emails, still in bed. So I'm not doing that anymore. But I think for me, what really was really good, and I think it's not especially for burnout, it's in life in general, I spoke to my friends. My friends were the first one I opened up as soon as I, you know, realized I was having a burnout. And I spoke to them. One of them had a burnout only a few months prior, and sharing and having them in a very kind way hold me accountable to make real change was good. The change that I made were basically delegating much more at work, in order to be able to fit, you know, my task in the day of 40, you know, 50 hours a week, and not 60 to 70 hours a week.
Yeah. And so this comes to the conversation of how, you know, are you all, I am very sensitive when I meet candidates and seeing how their energy level, just because I've met so many people that I pick up on that, and I sense, you know, if people are like a bit down or a bit exhausted, or not, you know, not really happy, or even a bit high. I will tell you, like, people are like, so, you know, and I'm like, oops, okay. So I sense that energy very quickly. But have you experienced being more kind, you know, with your teams, or seeing friends that were going into that spiral?
So as a leader, it's always been very important for me, and I protect the work-life balance of my teams, which is kind of crazy because I don't do it for myself, but I really do it for my team. And I will not allow my managers to work more than 45 hours a week, and 50 hours very exceptionally when there is a specific project. And if I see that they work more than that, I pick up the phone and I said, do you really want your wife to hate me and to divorce you? So stop working that much. So I think it's very important. And I think the burnouts often come from a toxic environment in which you work and you're pushed, and nobody is actually there to put the boundaries that Alex was strong enough to put for ourselves. But if you think about it, your boss should not, you know, ask you to call you on the weekend. She should be much more mindful than that about your work-life balance. So I think that leaders have a big responsibility as well, that they have to, you know, and they have to look at that, and they have to make the right changes to foster wellness as well, and bring an healthy environment, not a toxic environment, to their employees. So I try to do that as a boss. I've always tried, even maybe more so now. And I shared with my team that I was on burnout as well. I shared it with them. I told them, you know, that's what happened. You know, I thought I was invincible, and I thought it would never happen to me. But and they were very kind and very not surprised. I sometimes do, not sometimes, every year I do a 360. So they send me, you know, feedback on myself. And 1 year, one of them said, you need to take a vacation, which I thought was cute. And that was some of the sign you're talking about, you know, Agathe, that I somehow ignored, you know. So I shared, I was very transparent with them, and I told them that I wouldn't burn out. So they were kind, and they embraced the delegation, and they embraced the fact that, you know, I had to give them a task, and it worked out well. But going back after pandemic is also, I want to be careful not to go back into that crazy, you know, that crazy mode. I think that the lockdown and working from home had a lot of good for that, because we had a little bit more time for ourselves, and I'm trying very hard to keep on that, you know, on that schedule.
And Sophie, I agree about the responsibility of the leaders. A year ago, I was leading a team of perfectionist women like me, and we were working on a project, and I was starting to become a bit workaholic again and sending them emails super late at night. And one morning I have a phone call with them, and there's one of them that burst into tears, and you know, she was exhausted, and she said, it breaks our heart because we see that you're working so much. And so basically this kind of too much trickles down to us. And I had a real wake-up call, and I was like, I can't continue doing that, because it's fine if well, it's not fine, but if I do it just to myself, it's one thing, but to kind of entertain that to the whole team, that's not okay. And so I had a radical shift, and I was like, okay, we're going to take stuff out of our to-do list. I'm going to go and see our boss, and I'm going to say, we're not doing 3 things out of 10, you know, because otherwise you will have no team. So I really saw the responsibility and the impact around others that a burnout can have, actually.
Being gentle with each other in this traumatic times, because I think it is a traumatic time, is very important. Monique, I know that you've done a lot of training, so you train people on wellness. Tell us how, you know, are people receptive to it, or they have to often experience something drastic to feel it? Because I, you know, when Sophie says, I thought I was invincible, I think that's also, you know, we think we're invincible, you know, we feel that, yeah, we have that capacity until, you know, it happens. And that's where we listen. Are there other moments where we can help people understand wellness or bring people to wellness without having to experience a dark moment?
Yes, I do think that there are lots of opportunities for that. I feel that as human beings, we have a natural drive to connect, and we have a natural desire for community. We also have this innate desire for joy. And so if we're leading a life of balance, it is something that we naturally gravitate to. However, we do need to have a model or a template for that. And I don't think that it's a lack of desire. I just think it's not having access to things that are practical that people can do. So when, you know, you're training a team, you know, even simple concepts of not having a working lunch is a revolutionary concept, because we're so used to, you know, working, and not taking a moment to connect. Simple things, honestly, just having fun at work. Or, you know, Sophie was talking about being that kind of leader where she's really supporting her team, and Alex as well, supporting the team. One of the things I always say to leaders is to find out what the team would really like. There are a lot of wellness programs that already exist in organizations, but it doesn't speak to what the people are looking for. So, you know, to train people on wellness, it has to be something that really resonates with them. It has to be practical. It has to be simple. It has to be something that they can incorporate in their daily life and do it on a consistent level. But I don't think it's because of a shortage of a desire. We all desire, you know, one of the things when you look at the body and anatomy and physiology, the body has this intrinsic desire to be well and healthy, even when we're not supporting it, even when we're doing things that don't support our health, our heart beats, our lungs work, our immune system is trying. So just on a fundamental level, our body desires to be healthy. On an emotional level, we desire to connect to joy. So it's just being able to share practical tips and tools to really support people and their body in that desire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. I think that, and I know we have men on the call, but I think for women, there's also one additional layer that sometimes is difficult, is when you have, well, actually for men too, but when you have children and, you know, you have that other work after work, is when do you find that space, because, when the kids were small and I could put them to bed at 8, that was one thing. I had that time after, but, now I go to bed before them. So, but when do you find that space? I think with work, like finding a little ritual, and incorporating little rituals, little by little. How do we put that? You have to make a commitment to yourself, to make a list. How does any of you have a morning ritual, for example, or a workout ritual? Or I know, Monique, you have not a smoothie, a juice, a specific juice, right?
Yes, a tea.
A tea.
I use the tea. It's very simple. It's again based on Ayurveda, but it's just natural herbs like ginger, turmeric, a cinnamon stick, a slice of orange, just to kind of warm up the digestion throughout the day. Also just starting the day with room temperature water and lemon juice. It's as simple as that, just to kind of refresh the body. Yes, so something as simple as that doesn't take, a minute or two, doesn't take a lot of time. So yes, that's the way I start the morning.
You, Alix?
Yeah, I meditate every morning, and it can be 2 minutes to 20 minutes. It's rarely 20 minutes. But then I have this little ritual where I say 3 gratitudes, 3 things I look forward to in the day, and 3 worries or things I can't control that I just hand over to the universe, like take care of it. And then I feel like it kind of sets my day. And I've been doing that for several years. And at the beginning, I didn't really believe in the gratitudes. I was like, oh, this is such bullshit. Like, I'm grateful for the sun, whatever. And like, now I really believe it. I'm really grateful when it's a sunny day. So this little ritual has really helped me.
So three gratitudes, 3
things I look forward to, and 3 worries or things I can't control that I hand over to the universe, so I don't need to deal with.
Good. Somebody else take care of that.
Exactly.
Sophie, do you have some?
No, I don't think I have really any good ritual that I could just share, except like checking my Instagram as soon as I wake up, which I don't think is very good for wellness. So no, I do the glass of water. I will add the slice of lemon.
Okay. And I want to, open to anybody who's in this call, if you have tips or if you have stories, because it has happened to a lot of people. So if this is a time where you feel like coming out on burnout or coming out on seeing the emotions or just self-care, because, I think today, perhaps what I remembered, and, we've seen it a million times when you take an airplane, is you have to put the oxygen first on you before you can do it. But I think that I had the realization that as much as, people around me love me very much, my health was mine to take care of, right? I couldn't, it was my responsibility. And that was I think for me, the big awakening, that I was, in charge of that. And I had to put that forth. The other thing that Monique, you touched upon is joy. And I think one of the things that I do is watch silly movies. I have a special fondness for Spy, which is ridiculous, but I've watched already 2 or 3 times. But how do you bring joy? Because that's maybe something where, working in teams, working at the office, sometimes we have to be efficient, and we are asked, and if you are efficient, you're given more things. So how do you bring, that spice of humor or joy or like space, right? And Alix and Sophie, if you have tips with your teams of how do you create these moments of silliness or of joy or sharing or caring or.
Well, one of the things that I think is very important with joy is not to take ourselves too seriously. I mean, it's, you know, our work is important. Um, it does a lot of things for us as far as making us financially, you know, financially satisfied, emotionally satisfied, giving us a sense of satisfaction. But it is not us. It is not the whole complete story of who we are. So the first thing to joy is just not taking ourselves so seriously. Um, and you know, I dance at work. You know, I sing at work. I rock out when, you know, there's no one around and someone will sneak up on me and hear me singing, enjoying the singing. So doing just fun things. We have parties, and, you know, interacting on a level outside of work, on a more personal level, even while we are at work. So singing, dancing, spending time with coworkers, chit-chatting on a lunch break, going out for a walk, enjoying the sunshine at lunchtime instead of eating lunch in front of the computer. Just simple things like that to just elevate that feeling of being a whole person and being connected to others.
Is there anybody who wants to chime in and join or share? Or, you know, it doesn't have to be necessarily about burnout, but maybe what wellness means for them, and or what the COVID had put them, you know, how you shifted something in your wellness programs.
I can share some things. So I had actually 2 burnouts already, 2 different ones. I had one when 1 year after I joined Cartier in the US here. I had unfortunately also a crazy boss. And if I came and I said, okay, we have so many priorities with my team, with my small team, and we're not able to do all of this within 3 days, he didn't care. So he was like, I don't care, you do it. So I didn't fight enough to say, okay, it's not, we cannot. So I was like, okay, then we try, instead of going one step further and to say to somebody else, okay, here is the list of to-dos, this is not feasible, and my team is just getting completely nuts. And I took the responsibility of my team, so I didn't want them to get even more overwhelmed. So I took everything on myself, and I was working like Alex on spreadsheets, on strategic plans, on everything, plus all the operational stuff. And I ended up actually doing this over weeks and sometimes until 5 o'clock in the morning in the office. So I came actually back home at 5:30 in the morning, and the next days, usually I had the security coming into my office saying it's not okay, because they were seeing in the cameras that it was not normal for me to work as much, and so it went up. So, but what ended up with me is I ended up in the hospital. So yeah, it was one day before the strategic plan that we had to present in Paris, so before flying. And it was, I was just finishing one slide, and at one point I couldn't see anything anymore. It was completely white. My left side of my brain, of my face, was completely numb. I couldn't hear from one ear, so it was like a stroke. And so, yeah, I landed at a hospital. We were lucky it was not a stroke. It was just stress related. It was a cluster headache with these very big signs. And the doctor actually told me, okay, so how much do you work? And I was like, 16 hours a day. And he's been like, okay, for how long have you been doing this? A year? And so he was like, yeah, no, I mean, and he was like, okay, you just have to step back, you have to get a life, you have to do sports. So, and he was like, if you don't do that, at 45 you're dead. If you want to get to be dead at 45, just continue, but you have to change something. And that really woke me up. And starting that day, actually, I started more or less having a fight with my boss, because he was not seeing any change coming up. And when I said, no, I'm not working during the weekends anymore, I'm going at home, and I was not going home early. I was going at home then at 11 latest. And if it was not done, it was not done. The next day, it was okay. And I was not answering the phone on the weekends anymore. I was not doing anything. And I was also fighting for my team, because then he wanted to push it to my team. And I was like, definitely not. So yeah, I mean, I took it less personally, and it worked. So what I did is I started doing my gym. I started sleeping again more, and never a lot, but still more. And I noticed a big change, and I noticed also my brain was functioning again. So that was one thing. And what we installed with my team is also that Fridays before leaving, and we left all early on Fridays, what I decided with my team is that we all took half an hour before leaving to just do our to-do lists for the next week, to have a free mind when we leave. And what we did is we started having just a marketing meeting on Mondays mornings, which was not a marketing meeting where we had to prepare something, having something to present, but it was more coffee chat. How was the weekend? What were the good things we had this weekend? And it was more, okay, what are our to-dos? Do we think it's feasible, not feasible? Can we reshift to somebody else and help each other within the team or not? And then we started the week like this. So that helped a lot.
Thank you. I mean, thank you for sharing, Laetitia. I mean, sounds that was quite extreme for you. So I'm happy to see you smile and in good shape today, because yeah, it can go to quite extremes.
And yeah. I to be honest, I'm a little bit scared also after COVID, because actually companies reduced their workforce. Mm-hmm. And actually what they will do is they will try again the same thing. They will try to have everything done again with 1/3 less of people working there. And it will be, I think, for a lot of companies and a lot of workforces, a real struggle.
Yeah. So it's interesting you say that, because that's one of the big movement that we think we're going to see in the post-COVID, is that there's going to be a shift towards the gig economy. And I have a group of creative and designers, and that some are there, but one of the realities of being a designer in a big fashion brand is that you have now, 6 collections, like 3 additional collection, and it has put a lot of pressure on designers to create and to push. So what is happening is, as Laetitia said, is, teams have shrunk because of, for financial reasons, but so there's going to be even more pressure on those who remain and stay. And I think it's going to be also a challenge for those of us who are in the gig economy, meaning that we are consultants or we are outside of the industry, because we might be called, there's less, let's say, there's less awareness of the wealth of outsiders, right, than your team. So, I mean, it's not a secret that recruiters are called, when it was for yesterday. Like, people tell me, oh, when you're ready to play somebody? I'm like, no, they call recruiters only because they couldn't do it or didn't have the time or the budget, but it's for yesterday. So, so that's one thing. Kelly, do you want to take, because you said very emotional. Are you doing anything specific in this time of COVID? Or do you think it's the COVID has created more intensity? And I don't want to make you speak if you don't feel, but is there something that, that has come up beyond burnout? Like, not being able to go to the gym, or not being able to see friends, or not being able to or having to do all your cooking, or I don't know. Are there any things in the COVID that has made a big change?
To be completely honest, I'm grateful for all of those things that came out of COVID, because I enjoy cooking. It made me slow down and do that sort of thing. So I'm not grateful because I know a lot of people are struggling with the side effects from COVID. I am too, on a from a financial perspective, but I enjoy doing those things. I have had a practice of spiritual practice of meditation and doing daily work. I've upped it. So now every day at 3 to 3:30, I meditate with an online group. So I kind of feel more connected to other people. And I start the morning the same too. So it's 11 to 11:30, 3 to 3:30. And I make my appointments around that. Kind of in a nod to what Alix was sharing about telling her boss she doesn't take calls on weekends. Everything I do is around that schedule. It's still very difficult though, I think, because I'm not connecting with people. And sometimes so this weekend I spent a lot of time having conversations with people. But it feels like that sometimes people, you don't know who to connect with. It's kind of difficult in terms of connecting with people. It's much easier when you get off from work and you go with your coworker to get, something to drink or something. That part of it is missing. And the ongoing digital platform has benefits, but it also doesn't provide for that. So.
No. Yeah, thank you. I think that's a very important point that you made and that Alix made, is creating boundaries. I think boundaries was my weakest area, because I tend to say, oh yes, and then I'll figure out how to do it. But creating boundaries and having sacred, or date that hour where it's mine, I don't care, who's coming and who's going. But yeah. I want to hear from maybe the guys in the group. Maybe Vincent, do you want to tell us how it changed, or if you ever experienced, not burnout, but yes, maybe, or other people around you, or.
Well, actually, I think I'm not too far from Alix and the way I'm doing things. But it's the night instead of the morning.
You don't have to do everything like Alix.
No, the thing is, every time when I'm in bed, I always think about one things I didn't like during my day. Just, to have that in mind. Oh, I didn't like when I say that, or like when I leave that. So that's the first thing. The second thing is thinking about being grateful for 3 big things that happened on my day, and asking 3 things. Set up 3 intention for the day was coming. I think that's really helped me. And for me, it's the morning. I love wake up very early, doing even yoga sometime for 10 minutes or 20 minutes, and mostly having my cup of coffee, checking the actuality, reading the news, doing my benchmark. And that's very important. That's my moment where I turn off my phone and I don't check my email. And that's the most important moment of my day. Now, I will say that back 2 years ago, I was working a lot, and in the event industry, you have to deal with a lot of suppliers. Many people will always reaching to you and be like, hey, Vincent, there, and Vincent, you have to check that. And Vincent, I will send you that by WhatsApp, by Facebook, by mail. And yeah, I think at some point I was literally saying people please reach to me between this time and this from 9 to 10, but not after, not before that, because if not, it's a lot to handle. And I think boundaries is actually, and even more an industry where you are always get people to reach to you and asking you things. It's very good to have these boundaries.
Boundaries. Yeah. So I have to say, does anybody, so Molly joined. Molly and I have been working together. She's the one that is my most behind the scene person. And as you see, she doesn't even blink. So Molly's the one who's helped me set up all the collectives, the courses, etc. And when we were talking about burnout, she said, "Oh, I had one too." So we had a little bit of experience of sharing. Monique, Alix, Sophie, and I did share our burnout. Laetitia too. So I know I don't want to put you on the spot, but basically, if you want to share the one you had, or what you did after, or.
I mean, I'm not sure how it was for. I haven't spoken to many people who have had burnout, but mine, I think part of why it was so severe and I let it go on for so long past when it was sustainable was that I was on a work visa in a foreign country and I was the anchor visa. I was the visa holding my family there. And so me making the decision to like, I'm very done. We were on a plane within a week and it was like our entire life was there, everything. So it was a very, very heavy decision and I've never let anyone down like that before or since. And that's what it felt like. Although in reality, it's probably the only person I let down was myself by getting there. But it was, so the burnout itself was incredibly heavy. And then I was also a semi-new parent of a first child, and it triggered so many different things. But one of the things it did trigger was me working for myself. And I think, Agathe, you asked me this morning, like, this morning or earlier this week, what did you do? Did you have a pattern or something like that to get out of it? And I think reading, probably my like addiction to books and learning became a thing that helped me through, a different thing to channel my energy into, because I couldn't create that much. As a new parent, you don't have that much control over how your life is going to be day to day, but I had nightmares for 18 months, once a week, where I would like see my boss, and it took a really long time to get out of that.
So before I share to everybody what Molly does a lot of reading, and I just want to acknowledge that Monique has to say goodbye because she's going on a call in 5 minutes. And you can all follow Monique because she has a whole page on Instagram and wellness. So we're going to put it in the chat, but I think it's Monique. Monique, if you want to share, and she does privates and conversation, and she's certified in Ayurveda, massage, astrology, and whatnot. So Monique, what is your Instagram? Oh, being in touch Inc. or social media, and Charlotte put it in the Thank you, Monique.
Thank you so much. Be well, everyone.
We must. Thank you. So Molly, yes, because when I met you, you had this blog about 500 pages a week. How did you read 500 pages a week on a burnout? What is your...
Because it was like I had to channel into something. I don't know. I just had to channel into something. And so then I had to get my mind off of something. And it was the first time when I like declared burnout, I was in Germany. And so they are very like clinical about the way that you handle that. The government, like you get a doctor. I have a physical prescription from a doctor saying she has burnout. She cannot come back to the office. It's wild. As an American who is from tech startups, I thought it was insanity, and welcomed it. Yeah, I mean, I had never, the last time I hadn't had a job, I was 14. And so I suddenly found myself not having like a paid job, and I didn't know what to do. So yeah, I guess that's how it started. That's how the reading, I mean, the documenting part of it started. I wish I'd heard what other people did, because I could probably use some of those tips.
Well, there was a bit of everything. Some it was meditation. Monique, it was more rituals and bringing joy, and like starting with the tea. And she's very adamant about boundaries, I think. And Alix also created boundaries of never picking the phone after a certain time. And I think Sophie is still watching for boundaries, or doesn't have a ritual in place. I decided to go running, but as you know, I run like 2.5 miles max, but I do
That's great.
religiously, like 2-3 times a week. Meditation, I think, has been a big part. Meditation is tricky because when the mind wanders, it really wanders a lot at that time. So yeah. Does anybody have a meditation practice that they want to share? Oh, I want to share before is the Ho'oponopono practice. I don't know if anybody knows the Ho'oponopono? You know, Kelly? Yeah. So it's a Hawaiian song, and I'll put a link it's a Hawaiian song that is basically the idea to be clean, and it's 4 simple sentences. And I've taught it to my children and to everyone. So it says, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and I thank you. And it's a practice that they do if you did something to somebody, but they're not there anymore, or they have passed away, or they, you don't want to confront them or do it in person. You can say it silently, thinking of the person. If somebody did something to you, you can think of the song of the person saying it to you. You can even forgive yourself, which I think sometimes, we have to forgive ourselves of being so harsh or so intense or so type A or so whatever or so whatnot. But that was a little practice. Does anybody have a meditation practice or a little? I think music is very important. Does anybody have a music practice?
I can talk briefly.
Oh yes, and you're a musician.
I think that for me, I found a lot of the past 6 months or so, I suppose. I mean, it's not, I would say I've had a burnout, but my main industry is the arts, where my career is never consistent, but add in the pandemic and everything like that, there's just no consistency and no stability, which is something that I, as a type A person, love to have. And so what I've done through this time for my own mental wellness is throw myself into my music, and then also into a fitness routine. But so every single day I have a set workout that I do, and then I spend a specific amount of time practicing my instruments or listening to new artists, or I just find that in itself kind of allows me to like release whatever tension or insecurities or whatever it is that I have. And then at least, if nothing else, those are 2 sections of my day that I know that I can schedule, because there's nothing else that I can schedule at this point. Yeah.
Thank you, Sean. I think that's very important. I think that's maybe where we can be very it's difficult, is the sense of security. I think the sense of security has completely, well, at least for a lot of people, disappeared. And it seems that everything is falling apart. So it's true that how do you feel how do you find again ground when nothing else, seems to have any ground? Anybody wants to take a shot at what they're, Sophie or Alix? No?
I think one thing that helped me is a book you recommended, actually, Agathe, which is James Clear, Atomic Habits, because I was trying to start this habit of doing yoga and continuing to meditate, and I find it sometimes hard to keep the habit going. And James Clear explains, instead of saying, you should do yoga every day, it's about embodying that you want to be a yogi. So instead of saying to myself, oh, I have to do yoga with Adrienne on YouTube today, it's like, I want to be a yogi today. And just that kind of shift has really helped me keep these new rituals going. So I found that quite helpful to kind of embody it in the person I want to be.
Yeah, I followed that. That's why I became an athlete, which, as a French person, that came with a little challenges. But yeah, that's why I run. I'm like, I'm an athlete. I'm like, oh yeah, okay. But it's true. Any other books or that's a good one. Any other books or music or source of inspiration that, Molly, you've read so many, so give us one good book. No?
I mean, what's your topic? Atomic Habits is fantastic. This is going to sound really cheesy, and I haven't thought about this until you said inspirational. A book that lit a fire under me was actually Becoming, which feels incredibly cheesy that I'm using that because so many people know it. But
no,
what Michelle Obama did with her life up to a certain point, just reading that, you can't help but feel kind of like alum. But feel kind of like alum. Sorry, I have two very happy children in the background. And so that, after reading that book, it really just it kind of pumped me up to do everything I was doing 10 times better, or try to at least. But then also, I have a terrific husband who was crucial in me getting through what I've gotten through, and especially as a parent where you really can't control so much, the whole being like water and changing your expectations of yourself every day. And if you cannot be that thing, in Atomic Habits, you want to be a yogi today, but man, you cannot find the time to be a yogi today, but you can still embody one and then be it tomorrow.
Yeah. Thank you, Molly. It's funny because yesterday I had a conversation at my book club, and we said that, things are so shifting that our sense of the reality at outside has shifted, what we thought was true has shifted. And eventually there's the, pieces of us are shifting also. What we thought true about ourselves are shifting. And I think, Sophie, you said when, you thought you were invincible, and accepting that you're not invincible. I thought I had control over some things, and accepting that I don't have control over certain things. So if anyone wants to share a moment where they thought they were something for sure, and that they
thing is, I think also in terms of being a yogi or meditating, I think there's also something to understand who you are and your natural tendencies, and to work with them rather than against them. So in meditation, there's a few different ways you can approach it. You can have Zen, which is imagine the mind like a flat lake where you can see the moon clearly. Or you can also imagine it to be like surfing, where it doesn't matter what happens, you can ride those waves. So you can kind of make choices along the way about how you're going to negotiate your day in your own body and your own life patterns. So I've definitely experienced burnout many times in my life. And each time I do, I understand something about myself. I understand more techniques about what led me there and what I like about it. And I understand that for me, some people love structure, hate it. After 2 weeks, done. I feel like I'm not learning and engaged at the pace I want to be. So I've designed my life such that I can have these really intense moments which get me really fired up. I'm highly engaged. I feel like I'm firing all cylinders. I feel like I'm very effective. I feel like I'm operating at my best. It's like cramming for an exam. I love it. At the same time, I can't fly like that every day. So I can come in and work with a team and like blitz on a project. And I deliver so much value to the team. They love it, they love me, I love them, it's all good, but then I can walk away. So for me, I make choices about my contracts. So for example, it's highly unlikely that I will ever take a job that's salary unless it's at a very certain level, because in my experience in creative industry, there are always projects that have landed on my desk at 10 p.m. and are due at 9 a.m. the next day. So I kind of need to be paid hourly for that actually, or to have like really strict negotiations, because it's far too easy to kind of get to a 90-hour week. I've had teams talk to me and say like, yeah, it's 40 hours. And then literally the next day, boom, we just burn through a night. And I understand that for some people drawing those boundaries are important, but there's also a certain part of me that just actually quite likes it. Like I actually maybe operate best after like a 12, 14-hour process. And I can kind of hear that it's probably not healthy. At the same time, maybe it's healthy for me, because maybe I would prefer to just like work really hard for 2 weeks and then take 2 weeks off. And that's great. So,
yeah, and that's absolutely right. The more you know yourself, the more you can share that with the people around you, and that they know how to respond. I think it's very, very important to know your triggers. As I said, I'm more of a sprinter rather than marathon. So and I make sure I tell Charlotte, I'm like, you have to make sure you call me out, if I didn't do that on time, but it's very important to know how you work best. And Molly, I agree. I think we're in a moment where we have to be true to ourselves more than ever. And so being true to ourselves means that if you're not fitting in the company, it's not your fault. It's maybe, that's not the right company for you right now. Or maybe it was not the right boss, like in the case of Laetitia. Maybe the company's great, and it has to recognize that this is a moment. It's not about you, but it's maybe the situation, and it's time to move in a different way. Sophie, do you want to add anything? Because I know, so Sophie is the one who's at the office right now. So
I am in the office.
Can you share a little bit about going back in an office, how strange that must feel?
Yeah, it is. It has goods and bads. It's nice to kind of see some other member of the team that you might not have Zoom with, and so to be in that surrounding. It's nice to go out of your apartment as well. I think that I was, I spent almost 2 months without going out. I live in New York, in a city, so the drive to go to Connecticut is very refreshing. But it's also very, creates also a lot of anxiety for some people to come to the office as well. Some people do not feel comfortable being in the environment. So it also creates some tension that we have to somehow navigate. But I'm trying to really be, again, very cautious in not falling in the same patterns, because I think that during the pandemic, I was on the 9 to 5. I restricted myself on the 9 to 5. I was like, you have to do it, and it was really enjoyable. And I think I would love to keep doing a 9 to 5 if I could. I need to find a way. Not to go back to Laetitia's life. Even though Laetitia, I'm very impressed with what you've done. I thought I was working hard, but I've never worked that hard, I have to say.
Yeah, I mean, it was harder for a lot of people. And actually, this boss unfortunately got laid off only 2 weeks before I left. So it didn't help me.
Oh, no. So you left eventually, you had to leave.
I left.
Mm.
I mean,
and please, if anybody wants to ask questions specifically to Alix or Sophie or Molly or anybody else, please do. And I know it's already 6:13, so but I think that if you have any question, just unmute yourself. I think boundaries, if we're good, is boundaries, joy, and creating little rituals.
Yeah. I think also, so I think Kelly said that you meditate at 7 hours and that's no compromise around that. So I think that's also very important to have some me time in your weekly agenda and not being compromising at all on those moments that are for you, which I also do. So I think that's also something that's not negotiable.
And
I think it's also important to set boundaries directly, not wait until somebody is used, you know, because you want to make a good impression, to make everything and always say yes, and then at one point you have to switch off and say no, and then nobody understands. It has to be clear from the beginning, actually, that you have these boundaries, and it has to be accepted, because otherwise it's hard. Also, it's harder for you to get back to it, because you feel guilty then that you try actually to be happy again and to feel more stabilized. I don't know how to say it. So yeah, I think it's important.
I want to add one thing that Molly, Alix, and Sophie, that you shared the burnout, and Laetitia, of course. When did you realize, or do you ask for help earlier? Is there, I know I was more I was not ever asking for help. Is there now that you ask for help, or you call a friend saying, hey, I'm not well, this is not, is that something that you do more?
For me, definitely. I mean, I used to think that I had to do it all on my own, and actually getting help was a sign of weakness. And having the burnout was a real lesson of humility. And actually, I got over it because I started asking help. And now when I feel that I'm going back into my little workaholic or controlling tendencies, I reach out. And I have this tribe of friends and, close ones who know me well. And I just stop doing it all on my own. And I ask for advice. And then I get feedback and I get challenged, which is good because I need to get my natural tendencies challenged. So yeah, that has really, really helped for sure.
And I think the more you share, the more people will also allow themselves to give you feedback, because when you're that type A, you always have a good reason. You just go, no, I'm not working too much. I'm totally fine. I'm enjoying it. So they don't say anything. That when you burned out once, they're just like, I know you enjoy it, but nevertheless, remember last time, and it's, I think open up and using a support system is so important in life, and in wellness, definitely those people will hold you accountable to what you promised them that you will do when you default to your type A again, for sure.
But I mean, what about industries such as advertising? I was talking to some friends last night, and my friend Julia, she's a SVP and she's doing lots of product launches, and she just regularly works 14, 16-hour days. It's the entire industry doesn't, because it's a chain of launch. It doesn't allow it. All my friends that work shows, on the Drake show, the creative director is changing their mind, and they're also touring. So they work 4 back-to-back 20-hour days because there's an audience coming in. You've got to move locations, you've got to reset, and different content. And I feel like these industries are just designed. So, I mean, you can put boundaries in place, such as pay me double past a certain point, or you choose not to work in the industry, because to draw the boundary actually realistically means you just get fired or not hired again. And then you have to make a choice about okay, I can work in a different industry, but I don't know if it's possible to change these modes. I mean, and then because also people just change their minds at the last minute in the high-end industries.
Yep. You're absolutely right. There's some industries are worse than others. Absolutely. And it's very hard to fight the system. Molly, you want to?
Well, I don't think I've had enough time since it happened to really get there. And since it happened, I've worked 100% remotely since. And so that, I think, changes your relationship with work a bit. I would be really curious, Amber, you mentioned that I think you mentioned that you're freelance and that in your contracts, you're very specific about your boundaries. And I would be so curious to find out what kind of boundaries, you know, that is, because that hasn't been something that I have been like brave enough to put in a contract yet.
Maybe I kind of spoke, the words tumbled out. No, I mean things like, if I'm taking a fixed rate amount of money for a job, then I'm already building in twice as many hours as they anticipate. So, you know, or like things like this, or understanding that, you know, I kind of might have a conversation with my client about their expectations and then mentally add 30% to it, or understanding that actually I prefer to work late at night and take like a 2-hour lunch break so I can meditate and do yoga in the middle of the day, but I really don't mind like working on a logo at 8 p.m. Also, like I kind of, and then with also different clients, often in a kickoff meeting, I'll have like just through meeting them, I'll have a feeling of the kind of team, the kind of expectations, the kind of volume of crazy, and how much I might like or not like that crazy. So for example, if I like the people, I might love that crazy. If I don't get a great vibe with the people, unlikely. So for me to kind of be long-term with the team, because I find pretty much every time I'm like, you know, regularly pushed to what the limits are, then for me to maintain like a consultant or like freelance perspective means that I can maintain game face for a month or a few when I'm working with them. And then I can like duck out gracefully and say, it's enough now. I'm sorry, I have another project. We agreed to this amount of time, but without like, you know, kind of, there's a bit of like smoke and mirrors with maintaining the relationship. Yeah.
It's great. And I think it goes down to, I think boundaries is very interesting because it actually is about self-worth. We put boundaries because we value ourselves and we're like, no, not this, or, you know, just salary negotiation. It's, or, you know, how much you're putting, and it's finding value in ourselves and saying, this is more important than, you know, I am more important than you, or I am as important as this, or I am as important. So it's really interesting because at the end, boundaries, wellness, and it's how much esteem do you put in your health, in your time. Yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that, but it is. I want to highlight that Christine put that she cannot speak right now, but she started to take one picture a day of something that I think is beautiful. It's a different way of showing gratitude. I think it's beautiful. That's a great way. So I don't know if who wants to kind of end on the note. I think that, you know, with every challenge comes a lesson. And I think, you know, that's the silver lining, is that with every health, we value more health. I wish it wasn't, you know, I didn't have to learn my lessons that hard. But, you know, if anybody has closing words or they want to share something, Alix, Sophie, Laetitia, Molly, I don't know, Amber, Sabine. Mindset by Carol Dweck. Yeah, fantastic. Olivia, you want to share something, or are you just cooking? She's cooking.
No, I was listening to all of you, but I've been cooking at the same time because that's what's kept me sane, especially in those times. But just to say very quickly, I had a huge breakdown years ago, and which was kind of a depression, which was very unfamiliar for me because I didn't feel I was like a depressive spirit. And a friend of mine who used to be an artist, but who became a psychiatrist, then a doctor, and then specialized in micro and macro nutrition, told me how to structure the way I would eat in order to feel better. And he was telling me, and that's the only thing that I remember every time I have like some kind of slowdowns, is never to take any sugar before 10 a.m. and after 6 p.m. because they trigger depression. And so I started really eating a lot of raw things. So that's what I've been listening to all of you, and thank you. That was absolutely fascinating, but I've been cooking at the same time. So that's, I thought you were going to say goodbye. So that's why I wanted to show my face.
Good. That's fascinating. I think it's everything. Yeah. I think sugar is one of my little addictions.
Yes, mine too. No, I would just add maybe to be open to really listen to people who love you and who know you, because some little, you know, sentences they say are good hints that you're going back into the wrong direction. So just be open to it and yeah, listen and yeah, switch your mode again.
Yeah. Did you say you're very right? Because between that and what Sabine just wrote of always finding quiet time to spend with a friend, I have one friend who is not on the call, but I spoke to this morning and is usually on our call. She always tells me, Agathe, I want to see you, but book at least 3 hours, because we used to, you know, have lunch together. And she's like, it's too fast. You don't have, we're just chit-chatting and like sharing what happened today. I want 3 hours. I'm like, I don't have 3 hours. I don't care, but I'll see you once a month, but I want 3 hours. And we actually, you know, we'll meet, we'll have a lunch, or we'll have a sandwich, we'll go for a walk, or we'll go to see a museum together, but we have a longer time together. And I have to say, it doesn't feel so rushed, and, you know, things unfold. So it gets more personal after, within time. So it's true. Friends, when you have the time to listen to friends, and you create the time, the space, it's really nice. So thank you, everybody. I don't know if anybody wants to say something, but I want to thank you, Alix, Laetitia, Sophie, Molly, for all sharing, and Monique, who was with us. I think wellness should be all our priority. So that's it. I think wellness is going to be, you know, it's really all about what you do for yourself. And I think if you can be well, and, you know, I think it inspires others to do also, to be well. You know, we have to increase the value of wellness.
Thank you, Agathe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Only happens when we present an authentic and perfect selves to the world. Or sense. Oh, read the comment from Kimberly. It's beautiful. Enjoy that. Thank you for sharing. Because true belonging only happens when we present our authentic, imperfect selves to the world. Our sense of belonging can never be greater than our level of self-acceptance. There you go. Kimberly, you did the closing words. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.